neon sign outside read "The Velvet Crucible" in looping cursive. Beneath it, smaller letters promised "Live girls, every night, no cover before 10. The building squatted on the edge of the industrial corridor where the city bled into empty fields and rusting rail yards. Most people driving past assumed it was another dying titty bar, clinging to the last generation of truckers and factory workers who still carried cash. They were half right. Inside, the air smelled of coconut body spray, spilled beer, and something older, coppery and warm, like a butcher shop 10 minutes after closing. Mika arrived on a Tuesday in late October, hair still damp from the shower at the rooming house on Rectory Street. 23, 5'4", double Ds and ribcage sharp under a thrift store leather jacket 2 sizes too big. She had lied on the application, said she was 21. Said her stage name was Raven, said she had danced at 3 clubs in Vegas. The manager, pale, soft-faced man named Darren, hadn't even asked to see her ID. He just looked at her tits, nodded once, and told her to come back at 8 wearing black. The dressing room smelled like burnt hairspray and acetone. 6 girls were already there, none of them looking up when she walked in. They moved like people who had learned not to waste eye contact on new meat. "Locker 17's empty," one of them said without turning. Voice flat, blonde roots showing under box dye black. "Don't touch anyone's shit." Mika nodded, found the locker, hung her jacket. There was a small mirror inside the door, spider-webbed at one corner. Someone had scratched "Eek Peeps" the faces into the glass with a nail or a key. She touched it with a fingertip. The letters felt greasy. First shift passed in a blur. 4 songs on stage, 6 lap dances, $87 in crumpled 1s and 5s. The customers were quiet for a Tuesday, mostly older men in Carhartt jackets who smelled like motor oil and didn't tip for conversation. One of them kept asking if she would smile like she meant it. She did. Muscle memory at 1:40 a.m. Darren appeared at the curtain that separated the private dance booths from the hallway to the back office. He didn't knock, just stood there until the girl currently in the booth, stage name Cherry, zipped her skirt and left without a word. "You're up," he told Mika. "Boss wants to see you." She followed him down a corridor paneled in cheap black laminate. The music from the main floor grew muffled, replaced by the low hum of an industrial freezer. At the end was a reinforced steel door with a keypad. Darren typed 66913. The lock clicked like a broken jaw. The room beyond was not an office. It was long and narrow, lit by 4 banks of fluorescent tubes that flickered every 17 seconds. She counted later. White subway tile on the walls and floor, sloped slightly toward a central floor drain the size of a dinner plate. In the middle of the room stood a padded leather table, the kind you see in high-end tattoo parlors, except this one had 6 thick leather restraint straps, 2 at the ankles, 2 at the wrists, 1 across the hips, 1 across the throat. Above it hung a stainless steel track with a movable hoist and chain. To the left, a deep utility sink. To the right, a rolling steel cart arranged with surgical instruments laid out in precise rows. Scalpels, rongeurs, Metzenbaum scissors, bone saw, forceps, skin hooks, and against the far wall 3 tall glass-fronted display cases, museum quality. Inside them faces, not masks, not latex faces, tanned and gently stretched over clear fiberglass forms, so the expressions looked almost alive. One smiled with small crowded teeth. Another had a beauty mark above the left corner of her mouth. A third had eyebrows plucked into perfect arches and a tiny scar through one. All of them stared straight ahead with hollow eyes. Mika's knees made a soft sound when they hit the tile. Darren didn't grab her. He just closed the door and leaned against it. "The owner's name is Elias," he said, conversational. "He doesn't come out front much anymore. Likes to meet the new girls personally. You did good tonight," he noticed. She tried to speak. Nothing came out. "He has rules," Darren continued. "First rule, you don't scream until he tells you it's okay. Second rule, You don't ask questions about the cases. Third rule, he paused, smiled for the first time. There isn't a third rule, just those two. The inner door opened. Elias was tall, late 50s, hair the color of wet slate combed straight back, wire-rimmed glasses, hands soft and manicured. He wore a charcoal dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to the elbows and a butcher's apron, immaculate white except for a single rust-colored thumbprint near the pocket. He looked at her the way a jeweler looks at an uncut stone. "Stand up," he said. She did, legs shaking. "You're flexible," he observed. "That's good. Flexibility helps." He walked a slow circle around her, didn't touch, just looked. "Darren told you my name. That means you already know more than most of them did at this point." He stopped in front of her. "Do you want to know why I do it?" She shook her head too fast. He smiled anyway. "Because skin remembers," he said. "Muscle forgets pain, bone forgets pressure. But skin," he reached out, brushed the back of one gloved finger along her jaw. "Skin keeps score forever." He stepped back. "Take off the top." She did, fingers numb. The leather jacket hit the floor first, then the thin black bralette. Cold air tightened her nipples to points. She crossed her arms instinctively. Arms down. She dropped them. He studied her torso like a canvas, walked behind her, traced the knobs of her spine with one finger, not pressing, just measuring. "No visible scars," he murmured. "No stretch marks, no tattoos. That's rare." He came back around front. "I don't take the whole thing," he said. "Not usually. Wasteful. Most collectors only want one piece. Face is popular. Upper back. Sometimes the breasts if they're symmetrical. I keep the rest elsewhere." He gestured toward a second door she hadn't noticed, smaller, flush with the wall. No handle on this side. Some girls last 3 nights. Some last 3 weeks. Depends how careful they are. How quiet. How useful. He lifted a scalpel from the cart, turned it so the fluorescent light slid along the edge. "I'm going to make you an offer," he said. "You can scream now, fight, make this difficult. I'll still get what I want, but it'll hurt more, and you'll leave less of yourself behind. Or you can be still, be perfect. Let me work clean. If you do that, if you give me something beautiful, I'll let you keep your eyes. You can watch the whole process. You'll be the first in the case who still sees." Mika's mouth opened, no sound. "Choose," he said. She whispered, "I'll be still." "Good girl." He nodded at Darren, who stepped forward and guided her to the table. The leather was cold against her back. The straps were heavier than they looked. When the last one, across her throat, cinched down, she felt her pulse beating against the padded edge like a trapped moth. Elias pulled on fresh nitrile gloves, snapped them once, twice. Darren, music. A moment later, something classical drifted through hidden speakers. Slow strings. Debussy, maybe. She couldn't tell. The sound felt very far away. He started at the collarbones. The first cut was shallow, only epidermis. Just enough to outline, blood beaded in a thin red line, bright against the goose flesh. He worked in silence except for the occasional soft exhale when the blade met resistance. Every few minutes he wiped the edge on a sterile cloth, never letting the steel dull. She didn't scream. Not when he deepened the cut along her sternum. Not when he peeled the skin back in slow, deliberate wings, exposing the glossy fascia beneath. Not when he used the rongeurs to clip small pieces of subcutaneous fat so the plane would stay clean. She cried quietly, tears tracking sideways into her hair. But she didn't scream. He worked for hours. At some point Darren left and returned with coffee in a paper cup. Elias drank it black, standing over her, studying the field he'd opened. He set the cup on her pubic mound like an end table. She felt the heat of it through the paper. When he reached her face, he paused. "You've done very well," he said. almost tender, better than most. He lifted her chin with 2 fingers. I'm going to take the mask now. If you close your eyes, I'll take them too. Keep looking at me. She kept her eyes open. The scalpel traced her hairline ear to ear, then down in front of each ear, under the jaw, meeting where the Adam's apple would be. He worked the blade under the skin of her cheeks, her forehead, her lips. She felt the separation like wet silk tearing. No pain now, just pressure, and a terrible pulling sensation as circulation died. When he lifted the face away, she saw it from underneath, her own features dangling from his gloved fingers like a wet silk handkerchief, the eyelashes still attached, the lips slightly parted, a thin sheet of blood clinging to the inside. He carried it to the sink, rinsed it gently, laid it on a padded board, began stretching it over a form. She watched him sew the edges with fine suture, watched him trim the excess, watched him place it in the 3rd display case, empty until tonight beside the others. She watched him clean the table. She watched him photograph her raw, lidless eyes with a small digital camera. She watched him open the 2nd door. Beyond it was darkness and cold and the low hum of freezers. He lifted her, still strapped to a gurney now, into the dark. She watched the fluorescent light shrink to a rectangle, then a line, then nothing. She watched for a long time after that. Months later, a new girl arrived on a Tuesday. Her name was Sage, 22. No tattoos, no scars, hair the color of dark honey. Darren met her at the curtain. "Boss wants to see you," he said. Sage followed him down the corridor. She passed the reinforced door. She passed the keypad. She stepped inside, and on the wall, 3rd case from the left, a new face looked back at her. Eyes wide, still watching, still perfect, still Mika.